We got that dynamite. We got that dynamite.
Find the perfect ride for you today with the New Year New Ride sales event at Guam Auto Spot. Get behind the wheel of the 2024 Outlander Sport starting at just $22,995 or only $156 per paycheck. Visit GuamAutospot.com or call 671-478-AUTO.
Head on over to Cold Stone on this hot day for that classic soda shop feel, but make it ice cream. Try Cold Stone Guam's new limited time creation and float today. That's the root beer revival creation with root beer ice cream, chocolate chips, caramel, and whipped topping, or go with the float with root beer ice cream, root beer, whipped topping, and a maraschino cherry. Only here for a limited time, so visit them at their Micronesia Mall and GPO locations today. Cold Stone Creamery, the ultimate ice cream experience.
Buy fuel, get Wendy's. Drive to your nearest 76 Circle K and get free Wendy's. Yes, free. Fuel up with $30 and score your choice of a 6-piece crispy chicken nuggets or a juicy junior cheeseburger deluxe. Fresh, hot, and packed with flavor. But hurry, quantities are limited and this delicious deal won't last long. So hit the road to 76 Circle K, fuel up, and get Wendy's free before it's gone.
You or someone you know looking for a job? Well, Sentinel Security is hiring and they're offering starting pay between $10 to $15 an hour. And they'll train you too. Email them today that you're interested at sentinelsolutionsguam@gmail.com. Sentinel Security, Guam's most reliable security solution for your home and your business. Kickstart your day with one of Wendy's Guam's breakfast faves, the morning melt panini, breakfast burrito, or the sausage, egg, and cheese English muffin. Your mornings just got delicious. Head to Wendy's for breakfast from 6 to 10:30 in the morning on weekdays and from 6 to 10 a.m. From 6 to 11 a.m. on weekends.
Dare to try? Something new? Life's too short!
You gotta chill with the snackable drink.
Life is too short. Hey, you gotta chill.
Mogu Mogu.
Moku Moku!
Good Morning Show with Troy Torres is brought to you by 76 Circle K Guam.
I freaking love that Pacific Grocers Mogu Mogu commercial. I have no idea what Mogu Mogu is, but I'm going to go and wherever, Donkey, Happy Mart, wherever they saw that Mogu Mogu, I'm going to go and try that out because it's just such a cute commercial. Good morning, my dear friends. It is 9:53 a.m. on Monday, August 25, 2025. My name is Troy Torres. I want to thank you so much for joining me on this very rare morning live show. Normally, these days, I'm going live at night. But I am committed to trying to do more live shows in the morning. Let me not use the word committed. I am trying to be committed to holding more live shows in the morning. But it just preparation and all that stuff and what time I wake up and all that good stuff. And whether someone wants to have a meeting or a lunch or something, that kind of screws up my schedule. And then anyway, here we are. So, buenas, everybody. Buenas. Let me say hi to everybody here. Sister Jen Badar, I could actually use your help in correcting me if my explanation of the procurement process is either wrong or could use some additional details. Jen, I know you are very well versed in how government of Guam procurement works, especially among the line agencies. Debbie Kanatsa, my friend for the past 2 decades. I love you and I appreciate you. Are you living in the States now, Deb, or have you just been on an extended vacation? I miss you, Deb. Brennan Foster, my brother, good morning. My wife in all things but the physical, Johnny Rosario, I love you. Buenas Chalo Lance D, I love you too. Auntie Lonnie, I hope you're feeling better, Auntie Lonnie. I love you so much and I miss you, and we'll see you later this week. Remy Singh Castro, who says half a day from La Miranda, California. God bless you for joining. Thank you so much. And Jocelyn Pangadine and Rages, who says, I seriously need a lawnmower or bush cutter. I love that so much. A businessman last night. Thank you so much, Jocelyn, for keeping this light. A businessman last night, after reading our story about the $368,000 that the Department of Chamorro Affairs has obligated or expended thus far on Comfort Cuts, which is a lawn maintenance and janitorial services company. A businessman, after reading that story, wrote back to me and said, we are in the wrong business, boy. You know what? No kidding. No kidding. We are in the wrong business. But you know what? If whatever business we're in, we are running with integrity. We are not screwing people over. We are just trying to pay the bills and, try to live our life, try to pay the rent, the power, hopefully make a profit, then that hasn't been the story for everybody, right? Then, God bless you in your business. And we are in the right business if the business that we're running is honest. But man, when it starts to screw over the people, that's not the right business. Frank the Tank Cruz Jr., God bless you, my friend. Thank you so much. Auntie Debbie, I'm just reading about your medical treatment. I'm going to pray. I pray for you every morning, but I'm going to add you to the portion of my litany of prayers where I pray for people who are sick or trying to overcome some sort of condition. I'm going to add you to, so I'm going to pray for you twice, Deb. I love you so much, and I hope that you get better soon. So on August 8th, we sent a series of Freedom of Information Act requests to several different agencies. And I want to make a note. I want to make a note of something, a comparison between this administration and the last administration. On January 9, 2011, which was 3 days after Eddie Calvo was sworn in as the governor of Guam, he issued a memo that I penned. I wrote this, and he signed it and issued it because he truly believed in it. And it was an order to the entire government of Guam. Every single line agency, semi-autonomous, autonomous, public corporation, it was to apply to everybody. The governor didn't care about whether any agency was run by a board. He was going to, if anyone wanted to challenge his authority on this, they were welcome to challenge his authority, but it was called the Transparency Memo. And it was memorandum number 1 to the entire government of Guam. And among the edicts that he decreed in this transparency memo was that government of Guam custodians of public records were no longer to wait or to require that they receive requests for production of documents through Freedom of Information Act. Once a member of the public, and it didn't matter who it was, and it didn't matter what the documents were to be used for, the reason why anyone was requesting anything. Once someone in the public requested for a document with haste, the custodian of records of the agency was to, under this order by Governor Calvo, produce the document. And if you're not supposed to wait for the 4 days. If you could do it within an hour, you did it within an hour. And this was an order by Governor Eddie Calvo. And transparency, while there was corruption in the Calvo Tenorio administration, and I was a witness to it, but that's all the statutes and limits have run on that and everything. We raised those issues in the first 3 years of Kandit. That's already done, right? All we can do is learn from all that stuff, right? But I'll tell you this, that was a highly transparent administration. In comparison to the Leon Guerrero Tenorio administration, and the rest of the reporters throughout the media will vouch for this, with few exceptions, we and the public have been required, in order to receive public records, copies of public records, to file Freedom of Information Act requests, FOIA requests. And sometimes the agencies respond before the 4 days are up, but most of the time they take the full 4 days. and they'll send it on the afternoon of the fourth day. And most of the time, because this is the requirement that we have to FOIA now we have to ask for a whole bunch of stuff. There are greater than 10 distinct records or greater than 500 pages at a time. They'll ask for the 10-day extension. And so it takes a long time to get information. I just wanted to bring that up, raise that as a sort of aside to this whole conversation that I'm going to have with you, because it's an important part of it. Transparency. I wish this administration would get it together and not just, revoke this, unwritten rule that everybody has to submit a FOIA in order to get copies of documents. I wish also the administration would do what previous administrations failed to do, and that is to digitize public records and to place these public records online so that there is no more need for a FOIA law, so that we can just get the documents online. Should have been done back in the Calvo administration, wasn't done. It has been 6.5 years into the Ongaro administration, hasn't been done. At least not to the level where we could do away with FOIA law and just rely on the websites in order to get these public records. Anyway, be that as it may. On August 8th, we sent a whole bunch of FOIAs to a bunch of different line agencies and one semi-autonomous agency, and one autonomous agency. The autonomous agency being GPA, the semi-autonomous agency being Guam Department of Education. FOIAs for the procurement records of any of these agencies' dealings with any of the businesses and companies connected to Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio. What we've received so far is a whole bunch of comfort cut stuff. And so, unless you've been living under a rock the past month, you will already understand what Comfort Cuts is. Comfort Cuts is a business that is owned by Frankie Rosalind and operated by Charissa Tenorio. Charissa Tenorio is the Lieutenant Governor's sister. According to federal court documents, the money flowed into a bank account called Charissa Tenorio et al., meaning and others, from Comfort Cuts. And so at least if you're going to trust the records and trust what the federal government is saying, Charissa Tenorio is the de facto controller of Comfort Cuts and the finances that have come into Comfort Cuts. So it's the Lieutenant Governor's sister. And thanks to investigative reporting by Joe Nuggan-Charfris over at KUAM, who pioneered the media's look into the money that has been accrued to the Lieutenant Governor's family since the Lieutenant Governor became the Lieutenant Governor in January of 2019. Joe Nuggan-Charfris started with Tiguac Cemetery, the contract that Comfort Cuts had over there. And the Tiguac Cemetery is run by the Department of Parks and Recreation. And so that's where we started our look as well. But we expanded our look to a whole bunch of other places, including the General Services Agency, which is the procurement arm of the line agencies. Now, there are some agencies that do their own procurement. If I'm not mistaken, those agencies include the Port Authority of Guam, the Guam International Airport, the University of Guam, if I'm not mistaken, the Guam Department of Education, and there might be a few others for which procurement is not attached to GSA. But everybody else, it's GSA. GSA, you must send a requisition for a purchase order to be issued, and then GSA would issue the purchase order. And a purchase order is a very important document, and so is the requisition. The requisition, if I'm not mistaken, and Jen Badar, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the requisition comes from the agency. It's a requisition to GSA that says, please help us to begin the process of obligating funds for a particular use. And the requisition has to be backed up by something. And so depending on the threshold, or depending on whether there was a public health emergency at the time and some other type of emergency where emergency procurement was allowed, the requisition needs to be backed up by either a contract that was won through a competitive process, whether that be an IFB or an RFP, or through the 3 quotes process, or some other type of process prescribed by the procurement law. And then once the agency signs off and provides the documentation, there's a checklist of documents that they need to provide to GSA. GSA is supposed to, the buyer at GSA is supposed to review all that stuff, make sure everything's in line, make sure that there is proper authorization. And then this is a very important part. The buyer, with the signature of the chief procurement officer, issues a purchase order, which then obligates public funds. It's an expenditure. An expenditure is then created. This goes into the audits and everything. Now, whether those funds are disbursed, meaning paid in cash through a check or through a direct payment like a bank wire or something like that, from the government of Guam to the contractor, to the vendor has to submit an invoice, and the agency head or the approving authority or the point of contact has to sign off on that invoice that the services were provided or the products were delivered on a timely basis and to the satisfaction of the contract, or in the absence of the contract, the purchase order. And then Department of Administration makes payment. There are so many agencies involved in the expending of public funds in this way, from the procurement all the way to the disbursement of funds, that creates, and this is why it takes GovGuam a long time to make payments, is because of all these internal controls, which are absolutely necessary. Absolutely necessary. And a lot of people in the private sector, they complain, they're like, why does it take so long for GovGuam to pay? And a lot of times it's because the private sector company, the contractor, failed to provide a correct invoice within a certain period of time, or a lot of, and then of course there's the issue of the internal controls. And unless you want it to be easier for people in GovGuam to collude with people in the private sector to screw over the public through the corrupt use of public funds, then you should support the uses of these internal controls. Now, here's what we're finding. We did this FOIA on August 8th, and we FOIA'd a bunch of different agencies where we have been told that Teresa Tenorio et al. Have received contracts through the government of Guam. And we FOIA'd a bunch of line agencies, and we also FOIA'd General Services Agency, GSA, because how it works, how the documentation works, how the custody of the documents would work is that the agency through which there is a vendor agreement. So for instance, for example, Tigwak Cemetery is under Department of Parks and Recreation. Therefore, Department of Parks and Recreation would have a business relationship with Comfort Cuts, the contractor for Tigwak Cemetery. Therefore, the custodian of records at Department of Parks and Rec would have copies of the requisitions, the purchase orders, and the invoices. And they should have also copies of the proofs of payment. And then those original copies would be over at the Department of Administration, which would be the disperser of the funds. General Services Agency would have copies of the requisition, though they are not the original producer of the requisition. They would have it on file because the requisition would have to be sent to them. And also copies of the purchase orders. They should not have copies of the invoices because the invoices go to the agencies. So we asked for these documents, all of these procurement documents from all these different agencies. And what we found first was with Department of Parks and Recreation. The first peculiar thing that we were finding was that there was a contract for Comfort Cuts for Tigwak Cemetery that began in the year 2020 for fiscal year 2021. And it was a contract that had a 5-year renewal period, or 4 renewals, so up to a 5-year contract. That means it would have been up to September 30 of this year. And then, sorry, I don't know why my dog is barking. And then, sorry, that's very distracting. I completely lost my train of thought. I don't even remember what I was. Oh, so Comfort Cuts. So GSA would have, I'm sorry, so Department of Parks and Recreation, they only gave us, out of this 5-year contract and the disclosure of records, and we asked for all of the procurement records, they only gave us a portion of fiscal year 2021. They gave us what we believe to be all of fiscal year 2024 and all of fiscal year 2025. Missing from the records were fiscal years 22 and 23, the entirety of fiscal years 22 and 23. No purchase orders, no requisitions, no invoices. And DPR is supposed to be the agency that has the invoices. Now we're going to need to go and ask DOA, like, where are these invoices? Because DPR hasn't disclosed. When I asked Angel Sablan, who is the director of Parks and Rec, and by the way, he only became the director in fiscal year 25, or maybe very shortly before fiscal year 25. And the records do indicate that there was a cleanup of this procurement process during or at the beginning of fiscal year 2025. Someone at Parks and Rec saw whatever and said, this is wrong, this needs to be corrected, and so we're going to correct this now. Mr. Sablan has said that he was the person who started to review documentation and who ordered that things be cleaned up over there when he became the director of Parks and Recreation. But he also said that when I brought it to his attention, I said, your disclosure doesn't include fiscal years 22 and 23. He said he would check on it. He said that it's possible that the documents were already placed into storage, which would not align with the law, because the law says that you've got to wait 5 years before you put it into storage. Instead, while we don't have the invoices yet, we do have the purchase orders from GSA. GSA had the documents. In the disclosure that GSA made, GSA showed us that indeed for fiscal years 23 and 24, 22 and 23, same story as fiscal year 24. And if you remember the Kandit story about this, you'll remember that what our investigative report showed, that DPR, GSA, and DOA all allowed for comfort cuts to be obligated to and paid double the contract amount for fiscal year 2024. It appears to, without the invoices, it's impossible to say with certainty how much was paid out to comfort cuts in fiscal years 22 and 23, but at least the purchase orders, the obligation of the funds, double the contractual amount, according to the documents disclosed by GSA. But why doesn't DPR have these documents? That doesn't make any sense. Why does DPR not have these documents that they're supposed to have? The purchase orders, the requisitions, and the invoices. Oh, and it gets better. So DPR wasn't the only agency to disclose to us that there has been business relationships between Align Agency and Comfort Cuts. So has Department of Public Health and Social Services. They also spent thousands of dollars on Comfort Cuts, and we'll bring you that report later. So has Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center. They also had business with Comfort Cuts. So did Guam Housing Corporation. They also had business with Comfort Cuts, though I'm not sure if Guam Housing Corporation falls under GSA's procurement purview. That's one caveat. And then in the recent report that we brought you, Department of Chamorro Affairs, more than $368,000 that had been obligated by Department of Chamorro Affairs to be paid to Comfort Cuts over a 5-year period. That goes all the way up to February. Because see, Department of Chamorro Affairs is an agency that we FOIA'd back in February. They gave us the FOIA documents on a CD. I don't have a CD player, so I was always so lazy, and I never got around to transposing those documents onto a thumb drive until about 2 weeks ago. And so that was when I was able to look at the records and count it all up, tally it. $360,000 to Comfort Cuts for janitorial services over at the Guam Museum, and to clean the 6 small restrooms at Chamorro Village, to cut the sparse areas of grass at Chamorro Village, and to pick up the trash at Chamorro Village. And it also during times that Chamorro Village was closed. We'll get to all of that and more reports about those contracts and the performance of those contracts later. My point here in this live show is that Department of Chamorro Affairs disclosed 28 purchase orders. hundreds of pages of documents of procurements. Sorry, I don't know where it dropped off. Department of Chamorro Affairs disclosed 28 purchase orders and hundreds of pages of documents showing procurements between Comfort Cuts and Department of Chamorro Affairs. GSA didn't disclose anything. Didn't disclose that they had purchase orders at all from Department of Chamorro Affairs. Not one page, not one document showing transactions, showing procurement between Department of Chamorro Affairs and Comfort Cuts. Not a single page, no documents showing Comfort Cuts had a business relationship, had a procurement through the Department of Public Health and Social Services. Not a single page, no documents showing that the Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center had procurements with Comfort Cuts. This is a disturbing finding. How is it that GSA doesn't have these documents? How is it that, and we haven't even begun to take a deep dive like we did with Department of Parks and Recreation. What else is missing from the files? This is not a regular thing, my friends. In previous FOIAs that we've done of business relationships between government of Guam agencies and vendors, the documents that an agency has always matches up with the documents over at GSA. Always. Always, always, always. It's just now that we're finding massive irregularities, and the common thread is Comfort Cuts. Odd, isn't it? For Kandit News, I'm Troy Torres. God bless you and have a great day.
We got that dynamite. We got that dynamite.
Find the perfect ride for you today with the New Year New Ride sales event at Guam Auto Spot. Get behind the wheel of the 2024 Outlander Sport, starting at just $22,995 or only $156 per paycheck. Visit GuamAutospot.com or call 671-478-AUTO.
Buy fuel, get Wendy's. Drive to your nearest 76 Circle K and get free Wendy's. Yes, free. Fuel up with $30 and score your choice of a 6-piece crispy chicken nuggets or a juicy junior cheeseburger deluxe. Fresh, hot, and packed with flavor. But hurry, quantities are limited and this delicious deal won't last long. So hit the road to 76 Circle K, fuel up, and get Wendy's free before it's gone.
Dare to try? Something new? Life's too short!
You gotta chill with the snackable drink.
Life is too short. Hey, you gotta share.
Mogu Mogu.
Moku Moku!